Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton are often evaluated in the same breath, even though the schools are clearly diverging. For help choosing the right program, we at F1GMAT analyzed the 2025 entering class, or the class of 2027. Some of the key findings in F1GMAT Premium Analysis was: number 1, consulting background. It was the strongest at Wharton. Number 2, PE or VC or IB role. Again, Wharton had a strong peer group. Number 3, technologies. Stanford and Harvard clearly lead. Entrepreneurship, Stanford is first and Harvard is second. Healthcare, Stanford and Harvard have close to equal representation. Retail, Harvard MBA has a stronger representation than Stanford MBA. STEM, highest at Harvard, followed by Stanford. Business major, Wharton is a preferred school. Humanities, the strongest draw was at Wharton. Economics major, it was a big draw at Harvard and Stanford. International students, Harvard and Stanford lead. Women representation, it was at par at 3 schools. For Harvard MBA, Stanford MBA, Wharton MBA, essay examples, tips, strategies, and curriculum analysis, download F1GMAT's Harvard MBA Essay Guide, Stanford MBA Essay Guide, and Wharton MBA Essay Guide from store.f1gmat.com. Now let's go into the in-depth analysis. First, let's start with the application volume and selectivity. Harvard received 9,409 applications and enrolled 943 students, giving it both the largest applicant pool and the largest class size among the 3 schools. Wharton followed with 7,613 applications and 888 enrolled, while Stanford has 7,259 applications but enrolled only 434, reflecting its intentional small cohort model. The enrollment differences are closely connected to each school's positioning. Because Stanford keeps its class size deliberately small, it naturally became more selective, which helps explain why it attracts and enrolls candidates with the highest average work experience. So, an average Stanford MBA class has 5.3 years and also has the highest median GMAT, which is at 738. The smaller cohorts tends to appeal to applicants with more established early career experience who prefer close-knit, mentorship-heavy environments. Harvard's larger class size and broad global applicant pool contributes to its slightly lower median GMAT of 730, not due to weaker competitiveness, but because more diverse academic and professional backgrounds are represented. Its average work experience of 4.9 years aligns with this broader pool. Because the brand appeals to a diverse and global audience, Harvard tends to draw a mix of early career professionals, entrepreneurial candidates, and technical talent entering business leadership earlier than Stanford's applicant base. Wharton sits between the two on nearly every metrics. Its 888 student class, 735 median GMAT, and 5 years of experience reflect a model that balances size with selectivity. This structure also mirrors Wharton's strong professional focus. Many candidates with commercial or consulting backgrounds enter Wharton at the point where they have enough experience to pursue strategic roles but are not as deep into their careers as typical Stanford GSB applicants are. International representation also connects with class size and yield dynamics. Stanford's 38% and Harvard's 37% maintains higher international shares than Wharton's 26%. Because Wharton has the largest proportion of domestic finance and consulting applicants, its international yield is more sensitive to changes in visa processing and global mobility. In 2024-25, U.S. institutions saw slower international enrollment due to increased documentation requirements and processing delays. Harvard and Stanford's higher international percentages suggest that their global brands and smaller to mid-sized cohorts help stabilize international yield even in a tighter visa environment. The gender distribution remains remarkably consistent across the 3 schools. That is 44% women at Harvard, 45% at Stanford, and 44% at Wharton. When you compare the 3 schools on undergraduate degree, across the 3 schools, the most noticeable difference appears in the mix of STEM, business, and humanities background. Harvard and Stanford has the highest STEM concentration at 43% and 41%, while Wharton stands lower at 32%. A big contributing factor to this trend is the contribution of entrepreneurs. Applicants with technical degree often select Harvard and Stanford because both schools offer strong pathways into product, tech strategy, analytics, and early-stage entrepreneurships, areas where quantitative skills provide immediate advantages. Their STEM-heavy cohorts also signal peer groups with similar technical foundation, which can appeal to engineers and data-driven candidates. Wharton is still a business major-heavy class. They enroll the largest share of business majors, that is 32% compared with Harvard's 22% and Stanford's 24%. This reflects Wharton's identity as the most finance and analytics-centric of the three. Business graduates who want to deepen their quantitative training or pursue roles in consulting, banking, or corporate finance often prefer Wharton because the curriculum directly builds on these business fundamentals. Humanities is still a big draw at Wharton. The biggest contrast appears in the humanities and social sciences. Wharton has 36%, far higher than Harvard and Stanford. This suggests that candidates from non-quant backgrounds find Wharton's structured analytics score and broad recruiting options especially valuable for career pivots into consulting, marketing, or finance roles. Harvard and Stanford's lower humanities share reflect more diversified applicant pools, still broad but skewing more towards STEM, economics, and professional backgrounds. Economics major was a big draw at Harvard and Stanford. Economics representation is nearly identical at Harvard and Stanford, at Harvard at 19% and Stanford at 18%, while Wharton does not report it separately because many economics major fall under its business and economics grouping. Now, if you compare Stanford versus Harvard versus Wharton on Pre-MBA Industry, one thing is very clear. Consulting is the strongest feeder industry at Wharton. With 31% representation, Wharton attracts more consultants, much higher than Harvard's 19% and Stanford's 20%. For applicants, this means a Wharton cohort with a high concentration of ex-consultants and a recruiting ecosystem heavily oriented toward consulting and strategy roles. The increase aligns with broader consulting market stabilization in 2024-25, which expanded the number of consultants. Wharton is also private equity and venture capital heavy, and they also represent 8% from investment banking. Finance remains steady across all three schools, but with different patterns. Harvard reported 10% in financial services, Stanford 5%, and Wharton 6%, but Wharton also adds 8% from investment banking and 19% from private equity and venture capital, making it the most finance-weighted class overall. This concentration reflects Wharton's long-standing strength in finance and its location near New York's financial centers. Applicants seeking roles in private equity, banking, or investment management will find a larger peer network at Wharton. Technology representation was the strongest at Stanford and Harvard. At Stanford, it was 15%, followed by Harvard's 13% and Wharton's 8%. This mirrors Stanford's ties to the tech ecosystem and the fact that many tech professionals choose GSB for career acceleration or transitions into product management and venture roles. Harvard attracts a similarly broad tech pipeline due to strong entrepreneurial ecosystem, while Wharton's lower figure reflects the narrow flow of applicants coming directly from technical roles during a period of uneven tech hiring. Healthcare backgrounds appear strongest at Harvard with 8% and at Stanford with 7%, while Wharton's was much lower at 4%. This is a reflection that both Harvard and Stanford have stronger ties to biotech, healthcare innovation, and health policy communities. The government and nonprofit representation is highest at Wharton with 10%, second at Stanford at 9%, compared with Harvard's 6%. CPG or retail is highest at Harvard at 9% and Stanford at 7%, but minimal at Wharton with 2%, reflecting the stronger general management and consumer brand pathways at Harvard and GSB. Some of the key findings in F1GMAT Premium Analysis was, number 1, consulting background. It was the strongest at Wharton. Number 2, PE or VC or IB role. Again, Wharton had a strong peer group. Number 3, technology. Stanford and Harvard clearly lead. Entrepreneurship. Stanford is first and Harvard is second. Healthcare. Stanford and Harvard have close to equal representation. Retail. Harvard MBA has a stronger representation than Stanford MBA. STEM. Highest at Harvard, followed by Stanford. Business major. Wharton is a preferred school. Humanities, the strongest draw was at Wharton. Economics major, it was a big draw at Harvard and Stanford. International students, Harvard and Stanford lead. Women representation, it was at par at 3 schools. For Harvard MBA, Stanford MBA, and Wharton MBA essay examples and strategies, download F1GMAT's Harvard MBA essay guide, Stanford MBA essay guide, and Wharton MBA essay guide from store.f1gmat.com.